This is Your Anxiety Toolkit, episode number 181. And yes, I know I made a big error. I said last week was episode number 181 too. But hey, we're all imperfect. Welcome to Your Anxiety Toolkit. I'm your host, Kimberly Quinlan. This podcast is fueled by three main goals. The first goal is to provide you with some extra tools to help you manage your anxiety. Second goal, to inspire you. Anxiety doesn't get to decide how you live your life. And number three, and I leave the best for last, is to provide you with one big, fat virtual hug. Because experiencing anxiety ain't easy. If that sounds good to you, let's go. Well, welcome back. I'm so thrilled to have you with me for another episode of Your Anxiety Toolkit. This is a really exciting one. We have back Dr. Jonathan Grayson. We are talking all about magical thinking in this episode, and I love it. Really cool, actually. I was going to do it on my own, and then Dr. Grayson reached out and had some really exciting news, which he will share at the end of the episode. And so I said, hey, would you want to come on and talk about magical thinking with me? And we did. So I'm so excited to just let you listen to that. I'm going to go straight to the episode as soon as I can. But before I do, please know that ERP School is open and ready. I am so thrilled to share this with you. And again, just offer you this really amazing course that I'm so proud of. It is open right now. Now, the good news is that I'm going to keep the cart open now for ERP School. I have had it open all year, but we are running a free bonus training for this launch that we're doing, which will be going until April 1st. And this one is so good. It's like worth the money just in and of itself. This free training is all about motivation, the motivating skills I teach my patients and clients to keep them moving forward with their recovery, doing their ERP exposures and response prevention, really staying and taking care of themselves. This is jam-packed. It's an amazing training. I'm so excited to offer it as a free bonus for this launch. So if you're interested, you can go over to cbtschool.com or check the show notes and look forward to seeing you there. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and enjoy the show. Well, welcome. Today we have back again Dr. Jonathan Grayson. Nice to see you again, John.
Pleasure always, kid.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so we've got some exciting news from you at the end. I can't wait to share your exciting news. But in the meantime, we are going to talk about magical thinking. Now, the reason that I asked you to talk about this is a question I get all the time lately. And I'm not sure why lately, but it seems to be people are having a lot of questions about it. They don't understand it, and they're wondering where it fits in the terms of anxiety disorders. So can you share a little bit about what a magical thought is?
Well, I think it's like everything. We kind of have made it up as a term because, one sense really isn't all OCD magical thinking, but technically not by the way we use magical thinking. I think a lot of magical thinking implies that the rituals or the fears just seem so unusual that we said, oh, that's completely unrealistic. Like I kind of think of a continuum. You have GAD, which I personally think is the same as OCD, except the things that people are concerned about, everybody gets. Oh, I'm worried about, how I'm doing at work and everything. You're still trying to be certain. So, and then OCD, in the most common cases, it's like, well, that doesn't make sense, but okay, you wash your hands because you're afraid of getting sick. At least I see a connection. Then we start to get magical when I wash my hands to not be contaminated by my mother. And it's not clear what the connection is. So when it seems like one definition of magical thinking is we lack an obvious connection between the ritual and the fear. Maybe the fear is so unusual and unlikely, but I think we tend to be tied to the ritual. If I have the existential OCD, which, how do I know anything really exists? And so if it doesn't really exist, maybe this is all fake. So why does anything matter? I don't think we call that magical. I think I have to have an odd relationship between my ritual and my fears, where it doesn't seem to make any sense between them.
Right, right. And thank you for answering that, because as I posted questions, some people didn't know what it was, and they said, "Oh, this is the first time I've heard that." And I don't have
And that
OCD.
raised a lot of questions.
Right, right, right. So I think that
Remember, I just for, I think I'm correct, but and I think I would have given that definition before, but, I'm partially making up as I go along, but
right.
it sounds like it's working.
No, I agree. I agree. So a question some people have is, what about positive magical thinking? Like, good things will happen if I do X, Y, and Z. Do you have any, we talk a lot about it in respect to I do it because I'm afraid of things happening. What are your thoughts in terms of people engaging in this kind of behavior to make, for positive reasons?
Well, I think it's like same as negative reasons. How much time does it end up taking, and does it start to interfere with my life? I mean, we have people doing minor superstitious things who don't have OCD because they just rarely do it. So how much am I ruled by my positive thinking? And if we border on a very risky area, if my positive thinking is praying, but I spend 3 hours a day praying, have I crossed the line?
Right. I really appreciate you just kind of crossed off 3 questions there in one great swoop, which is so good.
Congrats. I was looking for 8 questions.
No, we can go deeper into that. So this was a big conversation, and this tends to be an ongoing conversation around religious obsessions. Is that fine line between, that similar question. The question that they have is, how do I keep my spiritual beliefs without going into magical thinking?
It's funny, I would word it a different way.
Please do.
When am I praying to a God that I believe in? And when am I praying to the OC demon?
Mm.
So in some cases, it's technically easy. When am I doing things that nothing in the formal religion I believe in backs? I'm doing something that no one does. When am I treating God as if God is stupid?
Yeah.
That is, I have to say it twice so God doesn't misunderstand. Technically, omniscient being wouldn't have this trouble, so I'm treating God as if God is dumb. Or I have to say it right, but why? God would know what's in my heart. So he would know. So even if I don't know what my intention is, me saying it 50 times isn't going to make my intention true or not. God would always know what's in my heart. So technically, if I'm going to be religious, I would just have to do it once and trust that God knows whether it's good or bad. And if it's bad, I'm going to have to trust God's forgiveness and so on. So many people tend to end up believing in 2 gods.
Right.
The really nice one, the really mean one. And I would always suggest pick the one you like, because although you might be making it up, generally the mean one's pretty irrational.
Right. Right.
I mean, we can veer off there. I'm comfortable doing that, but it goes into scrupulosity versus magical thinking. And I guess probably one difference is, maybe the major difference would be, there's no religious, the religious connections to something organized don't exist in, what we more commonly think of as magical thinking. You had somebody who worried, like, again, having the bad thought will make this bad thing happen, or I can't have this kind of thought. And, I know somebody didn't like certain words and they couldn't be there permanently, and they were getting their house redone. So it was great. We could paint something on the wall where the cabinets were going to go, so it was going to be there forever. But this was going to cause some bad luck if it was there.
Right. Yeah, no, I think we can go deeper into that, because I think that is a big area where it gets really tricky, right?
Mm-hmm.
An ongoing question, and you can go in any direction with this, is a lot of my patients and clients often ask about the difference between this idea of manifestation, Like they'll say, no, I want to think positively. That doesn't feel compulsive to me. It feels like I want to have a vision board and I want to project my thoughts of what I want my life to be. And that if I think that way, well, then it's more likely to happen. But we still have to catch where the compulsivity comes into that. What's your reflections on that predicament?
I have really, really very strong feelings about that. I don't know if you're familiar, then we could do it now, but you probably are. When I want to teach people about OCD, I say I can give you the experience of having it.
Yes, with the music.
Oh no, that's different. That's for
Okay.
that's for teaching mindfulness. This is
Yes.
you want to have the experience of having OCD.
Right.
And I would ask you to get a pen and paper and write down the following I want, and
Yes.
put down the name of someone you love. And then I'll say to die a horrible, painful death. And people either pause or stop or they write it after a second. I like doing it in a group because then I can pick out the people who are messing up. And if somebody doesn't write, I say, why didn't you write that? Well, I don't want to happen. Will this make it happen? No, then why didn't you write it? Well, it doesn't make me feel comfortable. Why? Might it happen? And they admit no, or they'll say yes, but that seems a little odd. Then, and at some point, the people who have written it, I'll say, would you like to cross it out? Cross it out. Then I stop them. Why do you want to cross it out? We run through the same thing. And at the very end, I'll say, who's willing to carry this piece of paper in their wallet? No, somebody might find it. Really? How often do people go in your wallet? Well, my spouse might find it. You can't tell them why you're carrying it, that you want to have this experience. And in the end, you get to say to them, because, when you talk about OCD to non sufferers, they just think about how they handle things normally. It's like, I wouldn't do that. But it's a small percent who don't respond to it. They just write it and don't care. But most people respond. As you get to say, this is what it's like for sufferers with 24/7. You're going to forget this in a few hours. When I was on the Oprah show, I was really excited because I thought we'll be able to do this exercise. And since it's the only thing that I've ever seen that gets non-sufferers to get it, it's like, oh, wow, I can get the majority of the country to understand it. Oprah wouldn't allow it because it would put out negative energy. And I think if putting out negative energy, given how much time I'm helping people kill people, die, cause bad things, I think my life, as well as the lives of everybody I treat, should be hell. Because we're thinking a lot about death, dying, killing, all these other things. I think the positive manifestation, which I think is a little different than positive thinking, is I don't want to say a trick, but I think it's a major avoidance that's very cruel. On the face of it, it's great. I can have whatever I want. I just have to think positive, which means that every time you're screwed up, it's your fault. Bad things happen to you because you weren't positive. You were manifesting the bad. So although it holds this wonderful promise, in the end, people are losers. People are, they're at fault. They didn't do it well enough. And they have this evil within inside them and all these other things. And although I'm a very optimistic person, I could simultaneously be a very dark person talking about things. So I would be a very lucky, non-positive thinking person, which I suppose is possible. But I really think it's way more destructive. And so, positive being hopeful, positive in terms of if something bad happens, I hope I will find the strength to cope with it. I think that's positive. But positive, like I'm going to make good things happen or bad things happen, I don't know. My wife and I had an extremely lucky life without that kind of positive thinking. So I guess we're just really lucky, whatever that means.
It's interesting. I was not expecting you to go there, which I'm so grateful you did. What I think you're saying is that in that way, it's very conditional. Is that what you're saying? That
Well,
you're kind of creating a conditional life for yourself.
yes, it's promising you can have everything. People love that. People like easy false promises. But then anything that happens, you screw it up.
Mm.
It reminds me during the first Desert Storm, my wife and I were listening to a religious station for comedy. where they were having a Desert Shield, where they were talking about, if you pray, if you join Desert Shield, your soldiers won't die there. And they would talk about stories of people, guys who were being prayed for, and the bomb blew up all their buddies but them, because Desert Shield works. And of course, you could send money to increase Desert Shield. And, the ironic thing is in Christianity, if you die, you're going to heaven. If you die, God decided to take you. So on the face of it, it's like, well, it makes perfect sense to pray for their safety. But then if I'm a good Christian, in a sense, am I not trusting God?
Right. Right.
And why would I be worthy of a miracle? And why is dying not why is it, it really sucks for us, but technically, like, it's a good thing. So I think in the same way, offering this promise of you have the power within you, and it's like heroin. Feels good.
Yeah. That's interesting because somebody had said, one of the questions were, is a part of managing magical thinking about trust, about hope and faith? What would your thoughts be on that?
And just to say, because it would never be clear if everyone's listening to me, I happen to believe in God, okay? Because people, when I'm speaking, must think I don't. However, I am perfectly willing to admit that I might be making it up. I would argue that believing in God and believing there's no God are acts of faith because I can't prove either.
Right.
So I don't have to know I'm right.
Right.
And I would be perfectly willing to change my belief if you can prove I'm wrong. Good luck. But I mentioned that because I'm not coming in from like an anti-faith thing where that changes what I'm saying. What was your question again?
No, somebody had asked, is the solution to magical thinking hope or faith or trust?
I think if I believe, because I think the answer depends, like, do I believe in a God or not? Because I think people have different systems, So some people who are afraid of things may not have that. So if I believe in a God, sure. In theory, God doesn't make mistakes, so it's not against you. And, hopefully you're going to be, hopefully you have a nice God. Otherwise, you're in trouble. But then we all are, so it doesn't matter. If I have to pick the right religion or I'm going to hell, well, okay, that God's crazy, so I don't care about him. I guess it's at some level it boils down to I don't have control.
Yeah.
So, and what can I trust if I don't have faith? And I don't think one needs faith. It's like, so if I don't have a faith, then I depend on the thing that saves all of our children from all the things that can happen to children. Our children get saved most of the time by luck. That's it.
Right.
Children get kidnapped, they can fall down the stairs and break their heads, they can get leukemia, they can die a million ways. And the only reason it doesn't happen all the time is statistically it doesn't happen all the time. But it happens some of the time. I think I said this on another show, but I'm going to say it again. Safety is never a fact.
Yeah.
It is always a probability statement. So what saves us? Luck.
Right.
And living my life to avoid low probability events turns out to not be really pleasant and probably not safer.
Right.
Which is, it brings to mind a quote. It's a really cool quote. I'm pulling it up on my side here, if I can. But you can keep talking while I'm pulling up my little quote.
No, that's an interesting way of thinking. It's funny as we talk about, I'll just talk about me. What comes up for me is as we're talking about the idea of losing a child or a bad accident happening, of course, your anxiety rises and your uncertainty rises. It makes sense that we want to jump to magical thinking, right? It makes sense that naturally the human brain wants to come up with this theory on how we could protect ourselves from that, right? I think that's such a human response of like, no, I'll just keep him safe. I'll take care of it. It's very like that. Don't
say that. I can wreck any care by saying, tell me what would happen if your kids die. Let me read you this quote and see unless you happen to know who said it. Because I remember when I first saw who said it, it's like, whoa. And then it was like, oh, that makes sense. Security is mostly a superstition. It does not exist in nature, nor do the children of men as a whole experience it. Avoiding danger is no safer in the long run than outright exposure. Life is either a daring adventure or nothing. Any guesses to who says it?
Mm-mm.
Helen Keller.
Interesting.
Right. So at first you're thinking, oh my God. And it's like, oh, wait, she's deaf and blind. Yeah, I guess that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of acceptance in that, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think acceptance, again, acceptance always sucks. We don't like to think about our children dying. That could potentially not be useful. When my son was 16, and he'd go out on dates and everything, and he would very frequently be late in coming home. And at some point, Kathy, my wife, would want to call him on the phone. And I did not want her to call him, not to protect him, but I knew, as she kind of knew, his phone was off. So calling when he's late and his phone being off, like, you're not getting any comfort out of this. So she'd say, well, when can I call? So I'd make this calculation. He's supposed to be home then. He'll probably be home. I'd add a bunch of time. Let me add a half hour to that. And that was the gamble I'd make. And she'd go, for some reason, I don't know why this worked with her. She'd be okay and she could go to sleep. And then I'd lay in bed and think, he's probably nothing terrible is happening to him. Probably he's not doing anything terrible. But this could be the night.
Mm-hmm.
Everything in our lives changes, where it's terrible and like it'll never be the same. And then I'd go to sleep. Safety is just a probability statement.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I cannot tell you how many times I've had that exact thought, right? This could be the night. This could be the day, right? And I empathize for those who try to control that, right?
Right. Or try to know, like, okay, this could be the night. How do I make sure it's not?
Yeah.
I have to wait up until they're here home.
Right.
I have to sleep.
Right. And I can feel it. So, this happened just on Saturday evening. My husband was fishing. It was already 2 hours past dark. Usually he's called. And my mind goes, this could be the night, right? You get the police knocks on the door or whatnot. Mm-hmm. For me, I can sit in that. But I know for people who do magical thinking, in somewhere in that section of time, they move into controlling, right?
Yeah.
So here, let me just differentiate, because I know some people are probably struggling with this. Is the magical thought the thought you have like, oh, what if I do X, Y, and Z to prevent that? Or does magical thinking also involve the behavior you do to try and avoid that?
The two are the same.
Right. I think it's important to emphasize that you can have magical thinking without doing the behavior.
Yeah, it can be thinking the right way or thinking, or doing something behavioral.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If I stay awake till he comes home, I'm in a very simple way. I just don't want to, I'm not doing anything magical. And I can't get the thought out of my head enough to relax and go to sleep. So I'm just worried. And I'm just going, what if? In the magical thinking, it's like, if I can do it right, it's safe. If I can do it right, it's safe. Am I doing it right?
Right. What would you encourage people to do? Do you have any tools or skills or tips for people who that is their predominant obsession?
Well, in a way where I'm really consistent, the advice I give is predicated on the idea that first they have decided that they want to learn to live with uncertainty. So if I don't want to live with uncertainty, this won't work. But I think if I don't want to live with uncertainty, there's no hope for me. So it's kind of a choice, but it's not like it's a great choice, right? It's like, well, I can choose to suffer forever in an attempt to not suffer, or I can suffer a bit and be able to cope with life better. How will I try to cope with it if the worst happens?
Right.
And I think everybody, when you present them that, they're like, I couldn't handle it. Everything would, that'd be the end. Because I think we all imagine, in a sense, that moment when you get a phone call and, they tell you someone you love is dead. And when that happens, everything stops. That's it. And that's where people's imagination stops generally.
Mm.
In reality, something happens next, And I mean, I always prefer it like if people have some kids, or if the kid's going to die, like if they have another kid, just makes my life more convenient, makes it easier to imagine going on because, right, something does happen. Some people, like if I ask some people if they, what if you get a diagnosis of cancer in the doctor's office? I would fall apart. Okay, what would that look like? I'd scream. Okay, you're in the doctor's office screaming. How long are you doing this? Which I'm not trying to minimize it, but right, the odds are you're not going to scream in the doctor's office too long. Like at some point you're getting home.
Right.
Eating dinner that night? Maybe not. Are you going to sleep that night? Maybe not. Eating breakfast? At some point you're going to be eating again. Are you going to do the things that are necessary to try to maybe cure the cancer, even if it has bad odds? Or are you just going to give up and die then? So I ask people, how would you try to go on? How would you try to go on? In 10 years from now, there might be a hole in your life, but do you expect your life to still be as bad as it was? Or do you expect new things to happen? Because and we always see people who have survived terrible circumstances in heroic ways. So luckily, I don't get to know if I'm that strong. I would hope to be, but I don't get to know. I hope I don't get to find out. But I think they provide us with hope because they show us it's possible. It's like, oh, that would be how I would hope to cope with things. I believe, I always say that when people with OCD overcome their OCD, they will not be normal. They will be better than normal. I'm dead serious because people who overcome it have been learning to cope with uncertainty. So coping with uncertainty is not only an OCD problem, it's an everyone problem, and people are terrible at it. QAnon, speaking of magical thinking, is normal people wanting certainty, And I mean, I think the difference is, as I've said, research has shown us that the only people who have 100% certainty are stupid. So, for something like QAnon, we get to see that, because it's not an anxiety disorder. But yeah, people seek that certainty, that magical thinking. And it looks different when it's anxiety driven versus whatever you call that other thing.
Right.
And I guess scapegoating is magical thinking.
You want to share a bit more about that?
Oh, well, I get to blame a group for all my problems. Somehow it's them. They've done it. I'm Jewish. The Jews have run the world. We've been running it for a long time. I'm always very upset about this because if we're running everything, I'm not getting my cut. But right, it becomes convenient. And now everything, it's like, it starts out one way and then it works its way into this other way. So it becomes very good. And, so not only are they, not only is there a force running everything, but it's always a demonized force. It's never a benevolent dictator.
Right.
So it's another kind of magical thinking.
Right.
My bad luck isn't my fault. I'm not getting a job because I've made bad decisions. I'm not getting a job because those people have stolen it from me.
It's interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way. I'm going to have to reflect on that a little. I'm glad you brought it up because it's true. It is true. What would you say to people who, and let me use my notepad for a second, who have the question, and I thought this was a great, interesting question, is how do I convince myself that my magical thinking is a lie?
I would say that's not going to happen. I would say, apparently, if you have to ask the question, you are suffering. So, in a sense, you've done a wonderful study, attempting to live by your magical thinking. And there are one of two conclusions. It's not a good system because it's failing. or it's a great system, but you suck at it. Getting better would be deciding, I'm going to take the risk of treating it as not real. Is it real or not? I don't know. But how often is it actually working?
Right.
How often is it bringing you peace? So, because I always think the saddest thing about those kind of rituals, statistically, they probably don't work. The bad thing's going to happen anyway at some point, depending what the bad thing is. So I do all this work for nothing. What is it I'm warding it off? And why is it that in my magical thinking that I have discovered the secret magics of the universe, that my feelings reflect forces in the universe that will control everything and everybody else hasn't figured this out? It's possible. I'm just always kind of going with the odds because I've got nothing else. It's like I say with, I had the woman who thought she could kill people with her thoughts, and I said, we're going to try to kill people with her thoughts. And I said, somebody might die. And you don't get to know if it's coincidence or not. You can kill 3 people on 3 separate occasions, separate, a busload of people still one occasion. Well, I don't know if you've got the power, but you're beginning to get scary. Like, all right, 3 times in a row with no misses. All right, we might want to treat it as if you can do this. If I have too many failures in between, then it's just not dependable enough. And if my answer is I'm always doing it wrong, well, I can only conclude that you do it wrong so often you're incapable of getting it right. So let's risk living in a world where maybe it's not true. So when we do exposure, we're not doing it to prove anything. Bad things may happen or may not. We're doing it because living your way has been awful.
Right.
So
Right.
it's a scary risk, but because, if I knew how to convince him, I'd be happy to. All I'm good at convincing people at is, I don't think we can know anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people get stuck on this idea that it feels real, but that doesn't make it true, right? Like that if it feels real, that it must be real in a lot of
Yeah. And
people's.
there's a great reason we do that. This is stolen from somebody else, but our brains are wired wrong. Everyone, you know, emotions come from a more primitive part of our brain, the reptile part of our brain, and reptiles, are basically pretty dumb. They don't have any cortex, so they don't really think thoughts. So, in dinosaur days, the little dinosaur is there and it sees the Tyrannosaurus Rex coming eating its friends. It doesn't go like danger. It has an automatic fear response. So like, and it runs away. No thought, no like it's danger, just pure emotion. And it's really useful if it can like learn to, the pounding of the Tyrannosaurus, if it associates that with the oncoming Tyrannosaurus and doesn't think like, oh, it's coming, that pounding just goes, and it runs away. That part of our brain still exists. And it's kind of useful. Primitive man walking in the jungle, hears a noise behind him. It's good if they turn around and check, So our emotions feel like the truth because we are wired to feel them and experience them as truth. And so we have these 2 parts of our brain, this like emotional part that feels true, and we have logic. And as I say just so often, logic doesn't change emotion. I'm diabetic. That doesn't make me dislike bread and pizza. Logic gives me a reason to not listen to emotion. Oh, I should stop eating that. Oh, I'm in a psycho relationship. Maybe I better get out of it, even though I feel like I love this person. The all go with your feelings is terrible advice. Never go with your feelings, always listen to logic. Terrible advice, which makes things really complicated. I have to guess which one to do. But emotions is truth. Nope.
No. Yeah.
Like if I'm in a relationship, it's great if it starts out with that loving feeling. I would say feeling love is necessary, but not sufficient. Do they treat me well? Do they treat me with respect? Do we work out like, is it, oh, it's a good relationship. Oh, they treat me terribly and all these other things. Okay, psycho love, get the hell out. I don't care what you're feeling.
Right. Thank you. I think it's so important to recognize that piece of it, right? That emotional reasoning that happens in this particular. Okay, so is there anything else that you want to share about magical thinking?
I don't know that there are any humans who don't have those magical thoughts. So I think, the difference is how much do we listen to them and pay attention to them. OCD always amplifies everything to the nth degree. So it's going to take magical thinking, that may be kind of harmless or maybe just a little bit problematic and ramps it up to unlivable. But it's still OCD, and there's nothing especially awful about it. It's not like, oh, this is a much worse form of OCD. We know exactly what to do, and there's always a risk. So we're risking that perhaps your feelings aren't the key to the universe's magical and spiritual forces that are, seems to be different for you than everybody else, because that would be amazing. You could be that person, but I'd like to know why. I just didn't hear the last thing you said.
Thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom on this. This is a topic that seems to be so paralyzing for so many people. And I really reflected, it's interesting, why now am I getting all of these thoughts? And I wondered if the state of the world is causing a higher level of, wanting to just solve problems like this, or I don't know. I thought
it's a good theory. I think it could well be.
Right.
Be interesting. Are traditional religions seeing a rise in, I'm going to say attendance, but we can't go anywhere. But yeah, is there any measurable rise in faith-based organizations or anything?
Right.
I think traditionally that's happened.
Right. Yeah. Well, okay. Tell us about. I'm so grateful for you sharing all of your knowledge. I can't wait for you to tell us about your exciting news.
I wanted to add one more thing. I wonder. We'll find out. I don't know if I've ended up raising more questions than answering. So you'll have to let me know. We may have to redo this because you may have I may have created a zillion more questions.
Yeah, well, I think that's okay, right? I think
I think it's okay.
Yeah,
it's okay.
I think, and maybe I love getting people's feedback on it. I think the tricks are the same. In what I would say is for people who are left with questions is the tricks. Magical thinking is no different to any other obsession in my mind. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think each form of OCD, I have different ways I try to approach that, different ways to help the person decide that there's no other way than to deal with uncertainty. I think there are different rules, but different arguments.
Mm-hmm.
That's different than somebody who's afraid of killing people, then they're afraid of pedophile, then hand washing. They're all different arguments. They have the same goal, but there's a whole set of different arguments for each. It's a talk that I'm planning, but I have to get the energy up to actually do it. But yeah, I'm planning that.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's so needed. I think that I'll just reflect really quick. I'm shocked that the questions I get are so similar in nature, but are really about help me to understand my specific situation, right? And that, and I know the answer is that we don't want to treat specific thoughts too differently, but I do think there are nuances and little tweaks that we can make. So I can't wait for you to do that training, like a conference training or like an online training.
It'll be an online thing at the foundation.
Cool. All right. Let me know when that happens. I'll be at the front. I'll be at the front.
You can bet I'll let you know.
I'll be right at the front for sure. Okay. Tell us your exciting news.
So they finally let him. People sometimes say to me, why don't you, make it an audiobook? Not understanding I have no control over that. It's completely the publisher. But the publisher finally decided to make it an audiobook. So it just came out this past February as an audiobook. So people get the displeasure of they can listen to me continuously now.
Right.
So yes, it's available on multiple platforms.
So exciting.
I guess anywhere you can buy audiobooks.
Right.
Some places make it hard. Amazon, you can get it, but they are pushing buying Audible so hard. That's hard to find. What's it cost if I just want that?
Yeah. I think you can. Of course, I got a question. Is all the scripts audio as well in the back?
I believe so.
That
I
is
haven't listened that far,
gold.
but yeah, I wanted that there. I mean,
That is gold.
yeah.
Yeah. So for those who
Yeah.
don't know, your book have all these amazing scripts in the back, imaginals. So I am so excited.
And it does come, if you buy it, make sure you find this because it does come with it. It may not be easy to find. There will be a PDF, set of files of all the forms and everything and certain other things so that you can print that out or look at that. All the forms are equally available for free if you want to download them at freedomfromocd.com. That's just free download for anybody. But if you buy the book, it also has a PDF of the forms and some other things, but I don't remember what.
Well, listen, thank you so much. I'm so excited about the audiobook. I'm like on a total audiobook binge right now. So I'm so excited for that to come out. And thank you again. I just love chatting with you. Yeah. And thank you. Just for the listeners to know, John knew nothing about the title of the topic of today. I was just like, so John, by the way, this is what we're talking about. So again, so cool just to listen to your wisdom on this stuff.
It's fun being thrown off guard like that. It's good practice.
Next time I'll bring you in and be like, okay, we're talking about chess this week and see how you go. Maybe you're really good at chess. We're talking about sewing teddy bears this week.
I'd give it a shot.
I'm tempted to just try just to see what happens. All right. Thank you so much again. I'm really grateful.
Anytime. Take care. Bye-bye.
Please note that this podcast or any other resources from cbtschool.com should not replace professional mental health care. If you feel you would benefit, please reach out to a provider in your area. Have a wonderful day and thank you for supporting cbtschool.com.